Welcome to Two Brothers and an Idea. They call me Ferdinand, the bringer of balance, leader of many disciplines, and one of your hosts of Two Brothers and an Idea. But I'm here with the big brother, the big homie, Tetaun. What's going on, brother? How you doing?
I'm doing well, man. It's always good to sit with you and have these unique conversations. How's your day, sir?
Oh, my day is going fantastic, man.
All
Well,
right.
there's a couple of things that went down. I'm in school, so the classes kind of overlapped in their 8-week sessions. So we had some professors doing bonehead stuff in the midst of this. So, dealing with the boneheadedness and, those things can take you for a roller coaster loop. But, I'm pretty good at getting my foot in, getting balance. So
Uh-huh.
everything is good. Today we're going into part 2 of growing out of the vampire. And this week, our topic is aligned with melanated energy and
Mm.
powering systems and programs. You got anything to say about that?
Well, I think you sound already as the subject matter expert to this particular topic. So I'm going to listen to what you have to share, and then I will cipher what it is that I need to respond to. So I'm gonna pass that baton over to you, sir.
You passing me the baton. I love topics like this because the reality is that we've got a lot of melanated energy powering a lot of systems, powering a
Mhm.
lot of programs. So like one of the things that I think about is Sister Myra Moss. I talk about her regularly because to me she's the oracle in real life, right? And she has a video that talks about super rituals. Man, this video, I'm telling you right now, everybody out there, I recommend you go watch this video because it helped me to change my perspective on how melanated energy and how energy period is being used. Well, Sister Myra Moss talks about how these super rituals like the Grammys, the Academy Awards, Super Bowl, NBA Finals, we can go down the list of a whole bunch more.
Right.
How they what is needed for them to be properly powered to get all the ratings and get all of the influential connections that they have is melanated energy, right? And when we look at the most important parts of those industries, it's facts. So these are things that I think that we need to think about as a community. How is the energy being used? How much energy are we giving? What kind of energy are we giving? And then as we are giving that energy in these industries, what kind of energy are we giving at home as a result of it? I think that all of this has its space where it needs to be unpacked, as you say.
You know, I think that if I was to make it a little more simpler to my thinking, um, there's a lot of energy and time that is wasted dealing with things that are negative, right? I think we spend a lot of negative time, negative energy, wasting our way at things that don't bring or the level of fulfillment that we need to be happy, right? That happiness starts with us as individuals understanding who we are, what our purpose is. And sometimes we get into this worm world of trying to achieve some level of power, influence. And so that energy that we often try to conjure up, I think often we mistake it as power, but I really believe that it's the death of many of us when we seek to be famous, when we seek to be great wonders, when we have a desire to be seen and recognized for all of the reasons that are self-aggrandizing. So that's my early thinking on that. I mean, I think that conversation go many ways when you talk about energy. What type of energy am I pulling from to express my opinions where that I don't intentionally offend, but then there's this conversation where intent doesn't always equal impact. And so as long as I'm speaking from a sincere, honest, and relatable but balanced place, then I still have to find that energy to also be sympathetic or understanding if in fact I offend someone. in my articulating opinion about whatever it is that we're talking about. So I think, it can go in many directions. Kind of lost you on that audio.
Thank you. When I think about Sister Myra Moss and, just rewinding back to her for a second, I think about the type of events that she was discussing. It brings me back to an interview that Shannon Sharp had with a comedian. I forget what this brother's name is. Really, really talented comedian. But he talks about how
Williams.
No. He talks about how the NFL they got beat out for ratings during their halftime show. And the very next year, they brought out Michael Jackson to do the halftime show. And this is melanated energy that's being used to pull the attention of people around the world. So I look at these kind of things. I pay attention to them. I look at the majority of these sports teams having melanated football players, melanated basketball players, in melanated baseball players. Many of them might not necessarily be Pookies from the hoods of America, but they dang sure might be Juans from Mexico, or you feel me? So there's a lot of melanated energy that's moving through these systems, and then powering these programs. Well, this is very similar to Monopoly, right? Well, imagine Monopoly being played by some very powerful people, but the table is us.
I pause for a second to respond only because I want to manage my thought. Because when I think about it outside of what we're talking about, when you mentioned melanated, I get it. I understand the significance of expressing our love for this level of skin, energy, so forth. But what does that look like when there are no people of color or melanated people of color, and they're just other ethnicities in all those areas that you've expressed? What does that look like in contrast to what you are communicating now? What will be the opposite or the similarities?
Well, the opposite is a lot less viewership. The opposite is a lot less exciting things that happen. The opposite is possibly bland. A lot less money that comes in. I'm not even saying this to hurt anybody's feelings or to come at any ethnic groups or not at all. More so just saying this to truly respond to your question. The opposite or the alternative of having no melanated people in these industries. This is literally what it looks like. And this is part of the reason why Black Wall Street had to be burned to the ground, because they got a chance to see what that looked like. Yeah,
I mean, I really, there's a delay in the audio. I hear you now, but I really understand where you're coming from. I totally get it. I'm just trying to give a different thought on a lower end of the conversation so that we can continue, because this is a lot here to digest when we think about the topic of, as we mentioned, growing out of the vampire. And for those that are just now tuning in or did not get an opportunity to watch the previous conversation, I don't know, bro, if we can just go back just a tad bit and give an overview so that people that are tuning in, that are clicking, who want to join a part of the conversation, or even just share the page, go ahead and like, follow, and share. But if we can go back just a little bit, sir, and just give the audience a little recap to what we're talking about so that they can just join right on in without missing a beat.
Absolutely. So on episode 12, we touched on growing out of the vampire, but we more so talked about the vampire within. We also talked about vampires without, people in our circles who might be feeding on us or feeding on different things, and it's not necessarily serving. But right now, we're talking about growing out of the industrial vampire, growing out of the vampire that is eating our energy on a regular basis, these hospitals, these grocery stores, these systems, these different programs. And if you got something that you want to add, hey, come jump in the studio. I'm about to put the link in the comments, and we would love to hear from you. But yeah, like Tetaun said, like, comment, share, follow, all that stuff, every one of them.
But yeah, man, if you look at that whole thing as you described earlier, man, it really touches a lot of areas that I think we really don't think about when you think about a vampire or a zombie, that zombie state being fed upon, the resources, the kind of time and energy that we invest in things that are material, right? And so when I heard you mention earlier when we were discussing this offline about the title, I was kind of taken back a little bit because I had to go back in my mind and actually process what that really looks like when we talk about our communities, when we talk about again our food sources, our medical, our hospitals. You know, are people being treated equally? Are they being treated fairly? Are we going in and being drained for our resources to feed a greater machine? And so a lot of times we kind of overlook those that are disenfranchised, those that don't have the things or the access to the help or the water, or if anything, just having the time to just rest because you're working 2 and 3 and 4 jobs. And so I think this is a great conversation to really explore some of those mechanisms internally, but ultimately those mechanisms on the outside that we have to be aware of, and being able to give the audience tools to be able to move through some of these things. We may not be able to overcome all, but to have some type of leverage to move forward.
I would agree. You know, and I really want to go in on this because there are patents that are powered by melanated energy. There are trademarks that are powered by melanated energy. There are so many copyrights powered by melanated energy. We've got to come to an understanding of that what's being given, that's what's being either handed out for peanuts or what's being given away practically for free, is billion-dollar information. This is what thought is. This is what ideas are. You know, obviously in their raw form, they might not be worth to many people what I'm saying. They might not be worth billions in their mind. But somehow Bezos was able to get somebody's idea to the billions level, to the trillions level, right? And these are ideas. And melanated people come up with some amazing ideas. There's so many of them that Umar Bey down in Baton Rouge teaches people when he takes his traveling museum exhibit of melanated inventors. And
Right.
he shows so many people all these different things that they're utilizing on a regular basis that come from melanated thought and may have been released, might not necessarily have been by that person, but it
Right.
still came from the thought. So these different vampires that I'm talking about that we need to grow out of, I think that they are industries that we need to sit back and say, all right, I'm going to work for this company for 20 to 30 years,
Uh-huh.
40 years maybe,
Uh-huh.
and what am I really getting out of it? And then on top of that, how is this thing that I'm putting my time into, how is it influencing me to use the rest of my time? Where is all the people ending up who are in these situations? What are we really getting out of this? What are we really giving to this?
Mm.
I'll give you a great example, man. There's a company right here in Newport News, Northrop Grumman. Okay, they've got to build, build massive ships. They've got to build submarines and stuff, right? Well, to achieve that, you got to have you got to have a workforce that has that kind of thought,
Right. You
that kind
do.
of ability. So this company stands on the shoulders of the people of Newport News, Virginia, and so many other localities. Right. This is just one. There are
Uh,
many, and it is melanated energy a lot of the times that they are sitting on top of. Sincere, close that
so
door.
when you mention melanated energy, okay, for those down the hall, I need you to squeeze a little lemon out of that and make it sweet. Break it down a little bit so people can understand what you're saying when you say melanated energy.
Melanated energy, melanated thought, melanated people coming up with solutions to different problems. Many a day since for as long as I've known and longer, there has been people like Tetaun and Ferdinand and so many others out here who do not have the resources necessary to solve a problem, but have been expected over and over again to achieve excellence along the way. And as a result of that, we have done it again and again and again. And this is the melanated energy. This is something that we had to learn how to do as a result of circumstance. And later on in life, certain people came in and capitalized on those things. Now, it's not just that. It's also the other industries that I was just talking about. Talking about all these different sports athletes, talking about entertainment. I'm also talking about aeronautics. I'm also talking about the pharmaceutical industry. I'm also talking about academia. I'm also talking about the spiritual, the physical spiritual realm, churches, mosques, temples.
Well, one will say, in a bit of sarcasm, if you allow me, favor ain't fair. How many of you've heard that?
You said favor ain't fair.
When you think about the idea as you explain what your thoughts are concerning melanated energy. And so I see it as an advantage, but I also see it ultimately based on when we talk about the internal and the externals, when you see those parallels of if you're going to do something from a favorable position, you can have a melanated energy per se, but it not be good energy. Does that impact the overall efforts, or can it change?
That's a great question. I would say that it does have the capability to tear down. Y'all see y'all later. It does have the capability to tear down, but more often than not, I think that we've seen the melanated energy help things ascend, help things rise. I'll give you a great example. One of the best examples of this is Washington, D.C., the District of Columbia. All right. Well, George Washington wanted his own city. He wanted a city that had a certain amount of spiritual energy, right? Well, Washington, D.C. was it. So he needed somebody to survey the ground. His name is Pierre L'Enfant. Then he needed somebody to survey the stars. But the only way that this could be done right is if you had someone to survey the stars who was a master of it. Very few people in this world have been masters of that besides the melanated sage, yogi, somebody from the Essene schools. Hey, you can call it whatever you want. These are facts. So, and when we're talking about in the overall scheme of population throughout world history, we're talking about a lot of people. The vast majority of people who've had this ability, melanated individuals out of ancient Mu, out of ancient Atlan, out of ancient Ulan, out of ancient Sumer, ancient Mesopotamia. The list goes on. I could give more. Right. But the point that I'm trying to make is this melanated energy has been harnessed and used. Now, the third person, because I didn't even give you all three. There's three in this one. So you got George Washington. He wants a city. Then you've got Pierre L'Enfant, who surveys the ground. Then you've got Benjamin Banneker, who surveys the stars. For this city to be built with the proper energy flow, you have to have alignment with celestial bodies. That is a requirement. This is part of the reason why you see the ancient Cometians build the Giza Plateau. This is the reason why you see all of these ancient cultures building structures that are still standing to this day, and they are connected to the Pleiades star system. They are connected to the Sirius star system. They're connected to Orion's belt. And so many other star systems all around that are all around the world connected to other star systems. Now, anyway, my point is you need melanated energy to do some complex things. And George Washington is a perfect example of that. He couldn't have did what he did with Washington, D.C. without Benjamin Banneker. He was the key piece. And many people call him, not many, the few call him Benjamin Banneker Bay because they know he was a Moor.
Okay, well let me ask you this. Let's dig in a little bit, and I'm opposing something here different in conversation, but follow me. When you mention melanated energy, are we talking about the melanation of one's pigmentation, one's skin color? Because if I was to die physically and leave this planet and go into a space where now you can't identify me as Black or Hispanic or white or Asian, does that energy change?
I'm glad you asked that question, because when we're talking about the melanin energy, the melanated energy, we're talking about the energy of the universe. Now, it may manifest in power that's within us, okay? It may manifest in power that is within us that looks like brown skin. But what is it really? It is the power of Gaia. It is the power of the actual universe, the universal consciousness, past, present, and future, all aligned into one, manifest in real time, right? This is the melanin energy, and it is packed into each and every person who is a member of the organic family. And that is according to Dr. Baby.
Well, I think this comes into great conflict to many that may not believe what you believe. You know, some may believe that the Ruach or the Holy Spirit is the energy that we need, right? It is the spirit of the Most High, the spirit of God, right? Some will believe Allah, or some will believe other things. So because religion has formed its space, in particularly to what we're talking about, how does it either disconnect or connect to your new age thinking, as you explain the way you see melanated energy? Is there a disconnect or there's a connection there?
There's definitely a disconnect there until you start getting into the quantum physics realm. And those scientists have found the tie, and they understand all of this information that I'm talking about. They just give it different names.
Okay.
But when you talk about, is there a disconnect? Absolutely. Many people are living in a European psychological conditioning that they don't really understand. They don't really understand spells, so they don't really understand spelling. So they don't properly understand language, which means they don't understand the law of suggestion. All of these things make a difference, right? These are all things that are connected to construct the realities that we construct for ourselves, that we see on an everyday basis on our screen of space. But many of us don't truly understand that we're creating those realities. Well, why? Because of that disconnect that you're talking about. And one of the things that I noticed was that you called it like this new age thinking. It's not new age. It's actually the ancient way of thinking. It's actually the accurate way of thinking. But because we come up, many of us, not all of us, but because many of us come up in a European psychological set of principles and ethics, laws, and teachings. Well, what happens is you didn't get your ancient foremothers and forefathers' teachings. Now, when you're missing that, You're going to be disconnected on a regular basis. This right here, everything that I'm saying right now helps to explain why you've got so many people dealing with divorce issues, so many people dealing with diabetes, osteoporosis, STDs. All of this is effects that are tied to the cause of lacking that ancestral tie. That ancestral tie is cut. So they don't understand what melanin is. They're thinking that melanin is the color of your skin. There's so many different parts of your body that start with the four letters MELA. Melanin is all through you, everywhere. And I would honestly say, I gotta plug the laptop up. I would honestly say that everybody on this earth has some melanin in them, but there are some people who have very, very little of it. But the people who have a whole lot of it, a high concentration of it, you can obviously see it from the color of their skin. But then you got those other people who got such a high concentration of it, you can see it from their actions. Their actions show how this power works. It's like a soil. And then you got a seed that you put in it. That's you.
We don't believe you. You need more people.
I like quoting Jay-Z out here. Is that rap I hear?
These conversations are very interesting. I believe very firmly that we always need dialogue. We need to understand one another. And a lot of times people are reluctant to engage in different perspectives and have different conversations for whatever reason that they choose. When you remove the science away from historical history and ancient times, when you just want to rely on one school of thought and don't go back and trace the trail or bring things in perspective. And so as we have this conversation, although it may be difficult for some people to process, or you're not even used to hearing me sit around conversations such as this, I choose to do this because I'm learning, I'm engaging, but I also understand what I truly believe as well as what Ferdinand understands what he truly believes, right? And so that's why I think Two Brothaz An Idea is so unique, because it breaks away all of the barriers and the disconnects that most people will have, right? Whether growing up in the church, you know how we used to do, where there was one denomination who got 10 churches on this side of the street who don't talk to this denomination, who got 5 churches on that side of the street because we don't wear this on Sunday, we don't say this, we don't act this way. And the whole problem is that the community needs to see the light that's shining or dwelling within your congregations and what you are called to do to your communities. And so when I think about sitting together with you, and I love how you have the range to give unique perspectives and research, and of course, a shout out to your herbmanship. Shameless plug to the brain boost. I don't know if you can see that, but I've been taking these brain boosts for approximately 30, 45 days. I'm down to now about 1 serving, and that's for tomorrow. And I can appreciate the research, roottribes.com. Is that right, sir?
Appreciate
but
it.
I just wanted to share that, because a lot of times people will come into conversations in the middle and they don't really understand the uniqueness between you and I and between the topic within itself. And so I just want to give you a shout out, sir. And those that are watching, those that are listening in, come on in and join in, man, and engage the conversation. I think this is going to be really dope.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And for everybody out there who needs some help, we got a lot of people out there who are dealing with brain fog, dementia, ALS, all kinds of different issues with their nervous system. Brain Boost on roottribes.com will help to solve those problems. Now, understand that Brain Boost is not a miracle drug. We don't, matter of fact, we don't even sell drugs.
You get, what is it? Holy water, get it from, what's the guy name?
I'm not sure, but I'm not sure, but and just know, everybody out there, just know Brain Boost has herbs in it that are herbs that are grown naturally from the earth to help us with our cognitive ability, to help us raise our brain derived neurotrophic factor, to help us get rid of heavy metals in the brain area. All of these things are possible, so what we've got to understand is, for us to allow Brain Boost to work the way it's supposed to, we've got to minimize the processed foods. We've got to minimize the drinks that have more in it than just water. We've got to minimize things that aren't serving us. Maximize our sleep, maximize our exercise, and write down our goals. And in that space, we will start to see healing. Right? So Brain Boost is one part of it, and you can get it on roottribes.com.
That's it. That's it. That's it.
That's my commercial for the day.
That's your commercial this morning? That was a good 78, 80 seconds.
something like that. But yeah, everybody out there who's listening, definitely please click the link. I put it in the comments, and come on in the studio and let's talk about growing out of this vampire, because there's a lot of people on a regular basis who are saying that we need to come together and we need to do this and we need to do that. Then there's other people who are seeing the problems and they don't really have a clue what the solution is. The solution is no different than what I was saying a little while ago. I was talking about how Monopoly is being played on our back. Well, for the game to be over, all we got to do is stand up. But we got to stand up together in unison.
Then that means it's not Monopoly, it's chess.
I mean, we could look at it that way, as if it's a chess thing. The reason why I use Monopoly as
that was a jest. I was just jesting.
The reason why I use Monopoly as my example is because when you play Monopoly, that game is really about real estate at the end of the day.
Right.
Many of us play that game to try to get a whole bunch of money and try to get around as many times as possible so we can collect $200. But then the people who are really playing to win, they're playing to get all three of them properties that's the same color. So now I can put houses and I can put apartments and I can put hotels and I can put stadiums and arenas in that land area. Well, that's what this game is that we're playing in real time. We're playing a Monopoly game in real life. And there's many of us who don't really understand that. We're playing some other kind of game, while the game that we've signed up for by getting that birth certificate and that social security card is Monopoly.
So what are some solutions? What are some solutions to be able to, because a lot of times, I know in my Navy career, I had this senior chief, his name was Chief Lovett. And I remember some time ago, this is when I was stationed in San Diego, he would always say, Mr. Moffitt, you're out here trying to play this game, but you don't know the rules. He said, sir, you're going to have to learn the rules of the game, because if you don't know the rules of the game, you're just wasting your time and you're just out there in the way. And so when we talk about this game that's being played, strategically, sir, if you could kind of give some methods or some ideas or some solutions to how we are to govern ourselves as we execute those things that are necessary for us to be successful.
Well, one of the first things that I would say that we need to do as a people is everybody in a neighborhood, in every neighborhood that has a little bit of yard space, it's time to grow a garden. This is important. And that way, what we have is an alternate food supply that ultimately needs to become the permanent food supply. All right. We need to go to the garden before we go anywhere else. Everybody in the neighborhood has different abilities, different cooking abilities, different preparation abilities. Some people understand how to jar better than others. Then there's other people who understand how to create seasonings better than others. Then there's other people out here who know how to make this or that recipe better than others. Well, we need to all come together and we need to all put everybody's resources into one bag. And then what happens is, now we've cut one thing off the table that we considered a need. Food is a need. You got to feed the people, right? Well, the people don't need to be fed. They need to feed themselves, right? Well, we can achieve that with just a little tiny bit of space in the backyard. And some know-how, and some sweat equity. All of these, right? But this is just one thing. Now, another thing that we can do is we can get involved in the political process, right? We need to be going to these city council meetings, town
Uh-huh.
hall meetings. We need to get involved, not necessarily more voting. We more so need to pay attention to what these individuals are doing and show up and call them on the things that they're doing, as well as give them our not necessarily reward, but we tell them, hey, listen, we want to encourage this
Right.
behavior over here. Certain behavior we're condemning, other behavior we're encouraging, right? But it still all starts with us getting control of our resources. We need control of our food. We need control of our water. These are the beginning steps right here. Once we
Okay.
have control over those, now it doesn't even really matter if we serve in if we serve in these political chairs, if we serve as city council, if we serve as mayor, governor, delegate, or senator. It doesn't make a difference if we serve as those because we have control over our resources. And so now what happens is when they come to us and they say, "Hey, Ferdinand, Tetaun, hey, Pookie, hey, Keisha, hey, y'all come over here real quick. I'm trying to get y'all vote." Okay, all right, well, this is what we want. Whoever you are, all right, boom, one, do this. Three, two, do this. Three, do that. And then what are they going to do? They're going to do it now. Well, why? Because we are working together. We are as one. And then, in addition to us becoming one, a natural effect of that cause, what happens is this: our money moves 20 to 50 times over in our community before it leaves. So the generational wealth is there from every phase, from every level: spiritual, mental, physical.
You know, it sounds good. Matter of fact, it sounds
Sounds
very repetitive to most who have heard these languages and these conversations and talking points before, right? And I'm being facetious, but yet I'm also wanting to ask a question for the people down the hall. And you hear these same similar talking points from multiple people. And it's logically, it sounds really amazing. But not understanding what does that really look like when you talk about obtaining your own resources. What does that really look like when we talk about these kinds of things? Because in reality, I don't think a population of people understand how much work it takes, and that work doesn't necessarily start with your hands. And so when we think about the three-prong effect, and I think you tapped on it a little bit, our mind, our body, and our soul, that tri-part of us, and being able to become united. And so do you believe, or do you think that as we hear these things, should there be a more in-depth plan, a strategic plan, because you're in America? And so many people will say, well, I'll just leave America and I'll just go somewhere to a foreign land and reestablish myself. Or I'll go back to the motherland, or I'll go back to Africa or Egypt or whatever. But while you're here in America, how do you do this? How do you obtain all of these things that you're sharing? Step by step, yeah, it may not be as easy to give that much detail, but what does that really look like? Are you duplicating this in your life? Are your neighbors duplicating this?
I would say what that looks like is people starting with what they have.
Okay.
We've got to work with the resources that we have. So if a person lives in an apartment, then you get a bunch of pots. You go over to a place like an animal farm where they have a park in Hampton, Virginia. They have Bluebird Gap Farm, right? Well, go to a place like that and you get all your soil for free. You got to pay for your pots. Your pots are going to be inexpensive, but you pay for your pots. Boom. Now you've got some soil and some pots. Now you got to get seeds. All right. Well, you can do all of this. You can start a small garden for 10 to 20 bucks. And it can be on your windowsill. You might grow some herbs. And this is what you start with, right? And then you see your health increase as a result of you eating what you grow. Then for the people who have a little bit more space. Maybe they're in a townhouse. They got a smaller backyard. They got a little backyard, but they got a backyard.
Right.
And then for people who have the houses, then you got other people who they can go and they can pay for a community garden plot, grow some food. Anybody can do this. It's not necessarily easy, but it's not impossible. So we've got to start to move in a space of understanding that we've got to take control of our food supply. Why? Why do we need to take control of our food supply? That's a great question, Ferdinand. I'm gonna go ahead and answer that one. Okay, because you're being poisoned. Go to Food Line, go to Piggly Wiggly, go to Safeway, go to Whole Foods. I don't care where you go; it doesn't matter, right? On those packages, it says yellow 5 dye. It says high fructose corn syrup. It says all these different things. It says a bunch of words that I'm a really good reader, and it says a bunch of words that I have trouble pronouncing. Those are not things that we're supposed to be putting in our body, but we're putting in our body at such a high rate. Well, why? Because that's what we believe is food. So we've got to unlearn and relearn. And then we've got to get control of our food supply. That's one of the easiest things for us to take control over first. But we also need to take control over our water supply. We need to be drinking living waters, waters that are flowing through streams and have high alkalinity, and they have a lot of minerals in them, right? We're supposed to be consuming that on a daily basis. And these are things that we can take control over because water flows everywhere. If I took you outside right now, I could guarantee you water is flowing right up under your feet. 100%.
So I just follow me a little humor. You know how it go. You make me nervous a little bit, man. I thought you was gonna gather some folks and head over to Ghana, because you could just take them people over to Wyoming or North or South Dakota, right? There's some places in the United States that ain't been tapped in, right?
Ain't no need to do none of that because this whole earth is mine. Every corner of it, every nook and cranny of it is mine.
So I guess the gist is that, what do you say to those? Because I know there's a community in Virginia right now. I think it's in Newport News. They have a community garden, and I think a lot of that area was heavily neglected when it came to grocery stores and things like that. So when you think about gaining control of your resources or gaining control of what those things look like, when you talk about a food desert, what happens to those McDonald's? What happens to those 7-Elevens if you stop patronizing them? What happens to all of those fast food restaurants or fast food joints that are thrown in those communities as a shortcut?
Well, what happens to them is the same thing that happens to disease when a person chooses to live whole health. If a person chooses to live in whole health, disease falls off like dead skin. So when we start to operate in whole health, McDonald's becomes a memory. Burger King becomes a memory. Exactly what they need to become, because they're not serving whole food. They're not serving live food. They're serving fast food, whatever they can serve the fastest, no matter if it's actually food or not, no matter if it's actually for human consumption or not. The only thing that they're really focused on is a profit. We've got to let these things fall off of our melanated energy like dead skin. So and it's not just McDonald's and Burger King. They're just one of two. It's really more like hundreds of them that need to just go away, because we need to be consuming directly from nature. This is part of the birthright. Everybody wants riches. Everybody wants wealth. Well, what real wealth is, it comes directly from the earth. It's free. That's part of the reason why it's real wealth. The most nutritious food that you could ever get, you're going to get it from outside, and it's going to be growing within minutes to maybe an hour or two before you eat it.
Mm-hmm.
That's real wealth. And these are the things that we've got to unlearn. We got to unlearn the old European psychological conditioning ways, and we've got to realign. We've got to retie that ancestral tie so that we can understand that nature provides all. What is talked about in that Bible, that Quran, those teachings of Buddha, and so many other religious teachings is about nature. But we've had so many leaders who they don't know what the hell they talking about, out here teaching this information in a mystical kind of way. So the people lose the real meaning of what they're being taught. And then they go down a path of destruction as a result. But if we get to an understanding of melanin, we get a true understanding of that, because melanin is not just the black in the universe. It's not just the brown on our skin. It's the nature in nature.
Well, my brother, I think while your thoughts and your perspective have great valid points, I mean, a lot of times people don't think that much into it. A lot of times there's not enough time to go and grow a garden. So I got to go find a community garden, or there may be a lot of stress that's placed upon that family in that particular community in order for them to make hit those short benchmarks that you have made point to, right? So how do we, or if need be, create either a check and balance or a community system that will be able to help those individual families or those individuals having a difficult time trying to transform what was toxic and destructive for them into something more healthy and suitable?
Well, I would say that each person would need to construct some goals as to what's important to them. Ferdinand can tell them all day long exactly which way they should go, how they should do it, and all of those things. But Ferdinand's not really able to construct their why for them. They've got to construct that for themselves.
Say it again. Their what?
What was that?
You said their why.
Yes. So Ferdinand's not really able to construct their why for them. They've got to construct that for themselves. And when they do sit down and construct their why, what's going to happen is they're going to see this need. There's no way it could be missed, because if you have any kind of an inkling of an idea that you're being poisoned, that your children, you're feeding them poison, you're going to want some kind of a change. You're going to construct a goal that's connected to that being different in your life. So that is something that everybody needs to start with, is writing down their goals. And they need to take a real good look at their life. Do a full audit of your time. There's 168 hours in a week, right? Well, do an audit of that 168. There's 24 hours, 7 days, right? Do an audit of how you're using that time. Do an audit of what you're eating. Do an audit of the amount of time you get in sunlight. Do an audit of how much water that you drink. Do an audit of what your sleep is like. If you're waking up really groggy and tired, or if you're waking up rested and you feel good when you wake up. Right? Do an audit of all these things, because this is what's constructing you. You are constructing yourself with this 24-hour, 7-day-a-week experience. Every piece of it constructs you. What you're consuming through the eyes, the ears, the nose, the mouth, the third eye, every chakra, all of these, everything is bringing in something that is constructing who you are. And as a result of that, you're having a certain type of output into your space. Well, what are you getting out of that output? What does that output look like for you? Do you like the output that you're getting? These are the questions people should be asking, because when we talk about the starting point, that really is it. The starting point is knowing thyself, taking the time to say, you know what, let me get an understanding of my triggers. Let me get an understanding of the traumas that have passed, that have came in my life and that have come to construct how I may move forward in certain situations. What is triggering my fear, guilt, doubt, and disbelief? Why may I be having trouble activating love, compassion, and empathy? All of these things are necessary in the conversation of understanding who you are, but also to understand the way forward for healing this mess that we have walked ourselves right into.
As you were speaking, it also brought back a conversation we've had in some time past when we talk about entertainment. And talking about entertainment is a very challenging conversation when one is bound by the idea that it's good. Well, yes, entertainment can be good for you. But there's a part of entertainment that will detain you, and whatever energy or whatever frequency that entertainment is vibrating on will enter into you. Now, here's what I'm saying. You could look at mind, you can look at body, you can look at soul. But anything that comes into us to interrupt the way we think, our value systems and what we believe can be just as equally toxic. The food that we talked about, the food choices, Ferdinand. You also talked about the ability to grow your own food, the water resources, being able to entreat yourself with education, renewing your mind, but also that when you come about and look at the music frequencies of sound, if you pay attention to all of the things that we find entertaining, you will see very less value in it. And then also there's a cause and effect to that, because you know that we'll summons what we serenade. If I constantly sit here and indulge in all kinds of debauchery, all kinds of foolishness, and I just write it off as, oh, that's just entertainment, then you'll find your body responding to it over time. You'll find your mind being changed, the way you're thinking, your behavior, and now you begin to repuppet or regenerate those things that you also have been eating from through the eye gates, through the ear gates, being mindful of kinds of conversations and corrupt communications that we do have. And so I think when we talk about this vampire that enters into us, or we allow it to come into us because of our own fleshly desires or our incorrect learnings and teachings and information, we really have to do a virus scan, Ferdinand. And so when I think about this virus or this vampire that has entered into individuals like others that we were speaking about and in the subject matter, what are some defense mechanisms, some antivirus protections or anti-vampire protections that you think that could be done to protect young people, protect our lineage, our young folks? Because a lot of times, as you mentioned earlier, that we could be so caught up in eating healthy that we neglect our children. So as we're getting all the lean and all the low and all the withouts, we still feed our children all of the things that they don't need to eat. And so what are some things that you think, 3 things that you think that we could utilize to help us be better witnesses to what we're practicing and what we're teaching?
Well, one of the things that I think we can do to be a better witness is keeping a journal. And
Uh-oh.
one of the things I want to give a shout out to you about. You just showed me your new journal, and I'm very proud of you for.
Oh, no, my man.
But journaling is one of the things. Writing things down. It says in the Bible. I'm not sure exactly the scripture, the chapter and verse, but it says in the Bible, capture the vision and make it plain. So this is one of the things that we need to work on as a people. We need to capture our visions and make them plain. They need to be written so plain that anyone else can read them and understand what the vision is, right? So a lot of the times our visions come in kind of cloudy.
Right.
And, it takes work to make them plain. Well, that's part of the work of discipline, of self-discipline. In addition to that, I think that we need to, you said 3 things. So let's say number 2, the mothers in the homes. The fathers need to get the mothers in the homes to reduce the sugar, salt, and flour. These are the 3 white poisons. We have got to stop using these on our children and then expecting our children to go to school, act like they got some sense. Expecting our children to go out in these streets and not hurt somebody. Right, we're giving our children drugs that the Food and Drug Administration doesn't call drugs. They call it food, even though what it is very close in chemical makeup to probably cocaine, heroin, all kinds of different drugs. But these are the things that we're putting in our children's foods. Then, in addition to us putting it in our children's foods, we're buying foods that says on the package 65 grams of sugar. And if I show somebody what 65 grams of sugar look like, they'd be like, what? How'd they get all that inside of this bottle? And I just drank the whole thing in 15 seconds. Well, this is the reality. We need to pay attention to these types of things. So we need to reduce those things. We need to reduce putting those things into our children's foods, the sugar, the salt, and the flour. And then we also need to reduce the foods that already has these things mixed into them. So we're talking about foods that are in bags and boxes. Our children shouldn't be eating that stuff anyway. Our children should be eating live food that grows from the ground. This is very, very important. So they get the proper minerals and nutrients that they're supposed to get for growth. If a parent truly loves their child, you could never feed your child poison. If you actually love your child, really think about what I'm saying. If I'm telling you, listen, this high fructose corn syrup, this is poison. If you're giving this to your child, the love that you say you have for your child, Ferdinand's gonna question the hell out of it
Oh
because
man, something wrong with a Slurpee? Not a Slurpee?
I'm not feeding my children sugar, salt, and flour at these high clips that you see from so many of these other parents.
Not even a Slurpee.
They do. They go to the kitchen and they get a corn dog. Child says that they're hungry. They go in the kitchen, cinnamon toast crunch. What?
Not even a Slurpee?
Slurpee? Come on, man. Stop it. My daughter loves those Slurpees. And I told my wife, I said, listen, no, minimize them Slurpees. We're not about to just have the baby just drinking.
They on the ceiling, climbing on the ceiling.
Man, I like one of the foods that my children like. I like them too, and I had to stop eating them. Yeah. Is those roasted cashews, right? So the roasted cashews. I'm looking at the back of the container, and it says in the ingredients list, cashews, sugar, right? So if for anybody who doesn't know, right, I've taken multiple nutrition classes, and one of the things they teach you in the class is about the nutrition list on packages,
right,
and it tells you that where it says ingredients, the ingredients list, right? Whatever is listed first, that's what's the most of in that package. Whatever is listed next, that's what the highest concentration of ingredients is, right? So if it says sugar in one of the first 3 things on the ingredients list, you got a problem if that's what you about to put in your body. Real rap. These are the things that we need to come to terms with, and we need to understand this for ourselves.
Right.
Because if we never understand this for ourselves, then it's just like, oh no, this is what the baby want to eat. The baby just want to eat some roasted cashews. Well, what if would you just hand the baby a bag of raw cocaine? A quarter ounce?
And it makes a lot of sense too when you think about on one end of this imbalance end of the spectrum, right? It's just kind of, and yet you're high off of the sugar, you're high off of all of these spells or all of these chemicals, and then you go into the societal social world of socialization and community and culture, and now you're being told in the music to get high, to do drugs, to live free. Then you're being shown through visuals, this is the life. No matter how real it looks, it's fake. This is the life. You're being sold something unbeknownst to you because this is what's put in front of us. Now they use the images and, to your word and your knowledge, the melanated representatives to give it validation. Now, all I want to do is be famous. I want to be great. I want to have all of these things because this is what reality world TV, the way we see ourselves. And so you're raising up, I think, in my opinion, an army of zombies, an army of sick individuals full of parasites, mind, body, and soul. But yet we want to unify to do something amazing and great, but our mind is damaged, right? Our will, our desires are selfish, and everybody wants to group think, and there's no one that will be independent from all of this. And so that affection is sadly said that those are really, in my opinion, the woke, the Walking Dead.
Unfortunately, that's exactly what many of them are. And when we say Walking Dead, this is what many people need to take from this. If you are eating poison on a regular basis, you're dead already. You're just doing it slower. And what's going to be guaranteed of you is that you're going to be in the hospital. You're going to spend a lot of time with Dr. Dan and Dr. Billy and Dr. Susan. You're going to spend a whole lot of time with them for the same exact problem 20 years in a row. You're going to be talking to them about this problem, and they ain't never going to be able to fix it because they have never been able to help you stop eating poison. You've never been able to help you to start an exercise regimen that made sense. They're never able, for whatever reason, to inspire you to sleep properly, sleep effectively. And without these things, you're guaranteed to go down a path of disaster. But the way the law of suggestion works is like this. This is what we need to take from this conversation more than anything else. Tetaun was just talking about the law of suggestion. He was just talking about things that we ingest through the eyes and through the ears and through the third eye and through the secretions of the skin and all of that. We've got to come to terms of understanding that our children do not become what we tell them, they become what we are. So when you understand this, when you're walking around here looking like a roly-poly and you just eat all kinds of nonsense that you knew you wasn't supposed to eat, and you know exactly what it does to you when you eat those things, and you eat an overindulgence of it. Well, all you doing is setting your children up to walk down the same path. They don't understand that diabetes is at the end of that road. They don't have a clue that at the end of that road is osteoporosis. They don't know that their spleen fails at the end of that road. They don't understand that at the end of that road is Dr. Dan and Dr. Susan and Dr. Billy waiting on them to show up so they can put them under the knife. They don't understand this. But what they do understand is that that Thanksgiving dinner, it was tasty. They understand that Chick-fil-A is amazing on those days where mommy don't feel like cooking. They understand all of that. And because they understand that, these are the new habits that they take with them through life. And when you live that way for decades, you are guaranteeing yourself that you're going to be a part of the zombie apocalypse as a card-carrying member.
Well, this may sound like a low-budget infomercial, but I would love for you to go to your roottribes.com website, and if you may, and be able to identify one or two products that you think, because I know it was really great for me, and that was that brain boost. But there'll be some products on there that could be very beneficial that you may want to talk about.
Sure, absolutely. So I'm on the Root Tribes website at the moment, and I'm going to go ahead straight to the gift shop. And this is just for anybody who like to get some products for themselves. We've got a collection of sea moss, very tasty, filled with a maximum amount of minerals, and very freshly made every time that we send out a batch. So
real quickly, I got a question. So you actually go out and pick these herbs. You go out, you and your wife, and you guys actually, use natural things to create these products, or this is something that you order somewhere else and it ships off to you?
Okay, so when it comes down to the sea moss, sometimes we have to get it from very specific vendors, and then for some of the other herbs as well. Many seasons I grow many of our herbs, and then we dry them and we process them, and we use what we grow ourselves. But some of the herbs, excuse me, some of the herbs, unfortunately, they don't grow in this hardiness zone where I'm at.
Okay.
In Virginia. So we have to outsource for those herbs. Some of the herbs require colder temperatures. Other herbs require more of a tropical environment, more heat, or whatever it is they require. Maybe more consistency of certain minerals in the soil. So certain things we're not able to grow here. And but many of the herbs I do grow them, like yarrow, like mullein, and quite a few other ones. I grow those herbs myself. Now, one of the things that I do, just so everybody out there knows, I create these herbal combinations and these detoxes myself. My wife, she helps me in the manufacturing side, so she prints the labels and she puts the bottles together and all of that. So she does a great job with that. And this is all home done. This is all homemade, right? This is made with love and care and affection and empathy and compassion. And I mean, at the end of the day, Tetaun, I want to make sure I put emphasis on why that's so important. One of the things that I was talking to a group of people about a couple of days ago was talismans, and how important it is to make a talisman in a certain spiritual, with a certain spiritual connection to what you're doing. Because once you pass it on to the next person, now that energy is passed on to them, right? So every one of these bottles that you're looking at here, these are talismans. Every one of these capsules that's in these bottles, these are talismans. And I made every single one of these with love for my people. I made every single one of these with compassion and empathy for my people. Like, this is very, very important that people understand this when they're buying a product from someone. They need to make sure that they buy it from a group of people who made it with love and care and empathy, and they weren't focused on getting money. They was focused on getting a change in the way that their people are able to achieve.
Very good setup there. I was interested. I saw one of your product, and that's the one I have been using, the Brain Boost. I found it very useful. I enjoyed the vitamins that it provided. I also noticed a difference in my brain function. I'm not, the anti-aging, man. The fit, man. Look, I forgot that 50 was even was even realistic until I hit the corner of it, man. But the Brain Boost has been extraordinary. Being able to wake up with energy, being able to really make good use of those natural herbs. Now, my wife, she has some of those herbs, but it was really good to see and be a witness to the product. So, man, I really appreciate that Brain Boost.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you telling the world about your experience with it. The thing about it is this, man. Some years ago, and I've told you this story before. I've told a few people this story. We had some problems in my marriage, and there was really nobody who was able to provide me with solutions that made sense. And the people who I thought probably had those solutions that made sense, they wanted a piece of my body for it. They wanted they wanted an arm, a leg, a kidney, like that. That's what the cost was, 4 or 5 figures just to get some real help.
Right.
So I went out and I found the solutions, and I started to understand that not only were we ingesting these wicked spirits that was helping to control us in a negative way, but we were locking in those spirits. We were locking in those thoughts with the things that we eat. And I'm glad that I came to this, because I want to touch on this for a second. We've got to understand how that law of suggestion works. What we ingest or what we experience in repetition, we become. So if we are bringing in negative vibes, negative thoughts, negative visions, what's happening is we're bringing in symbols of wickedness. We're bringing in symbols of negativity. But if we charge those up with emotion, which we often do, what happens is now we've created a symbol, a prism. We've created a prism in the mind. Well, you create enough of those, and eventually you get trapped inside of it, inside of your own mind, and you become a prisoner of the mind. Well, we've got a lot of people who are operating right now like prisoners of the mind. They don't really understand that they're operating like prisoners of the mind. But I can recognize it real easy. We were talking about it a little while ago with resistance.
Yeah.
When you start bringing up truth and you have people running from it, backpedaling, rationalizing, all these different things are ways to understand if a person hasn't dealt with their regressed trauma very well.
Yeah, it's a very difficult thing, but I think when you come to knowledge of root source of your problem, I think a lot of times we go looking at the leaves. We even go look up to the sky often, but we don't get to the root of our problems and our circumstances. And so many times, people will run to the synagogue, they'll run to the tabernacles, they'll run to the churches, they'll run to the hospitals. And a lot of the things that are even in the Bible or even in the various books that they teach out of explains the benefit of the things that are in the ground, in the root. Being able to look at those things naturally feeding the body. And what's even more devastating is to know that there are poisons being fed to us, and still you will continue to go and indulge at whatever level that you choose to. And it's a struggle. It's very difficult, right? As you mentioned before, the parasites that we often feed. And sometimes when we're really, really hungry, or we really, really have a desire for something, that desire is not necessarily us per se, but it's the parasites that are inside of us who need to feed, who need to eat. Now, you elevate that thought to another level. And then what occupies me, what I have allowed to enter me through entertainment, and now it has detained me for entry. And so now it is now because of the influenza or the influence of whatever it is that I'm digesting, whatever it is that I'm taking in. Oh, it doesn't bother me. It's not powerful enough. Oh, I could eat enough cheeseburgers and, I'll be okay. But over time, you will eventually begin to become the very same thing that you hate. Now, how hypocritical is that? Well, it's not so much that it's so hypocritical, I believe. I just think that a lot of times we don't really want to sacrifice, or we don't want to take that first step, because that first step is very difficult. I haven't eaten seafood as long as I could remember, since I've been in Dallas, at least for the last 2 years. There's certain things that I pulled out of my diet that allowed me to even feel better, but not only just feel better, but also be able to think better, right? There's a lot of toxins, there's a lot of chemicals in a lot of the foods that we're eating. So I just really appreciate the segue to the conversation as we initiated it earlier, talking about this vampire that infects us. But to be able to grow and understand that there are a lot of healthy things that we could be doing better, right? Even to our water sources. I think fruit is one of our greatest water sources. When you indulge in various melons, I love taking watermelon and putting it in the blender and making me a good little watermelon cocktail, with the seeds in it. And so I think, again, bro, this was a great conversation, being able to unpack this level of thinking, but to know that healthy eating begots healthy living. It also involves how we think and how we experience this life. And so if I'm full of a bunch of haters, watch this. If I indulge in a bunch of haters, then I become the hater that I've been indulging. And what I'm resisting is what I've been intaking for so long, and it's become a part of me. It's now my reality. So we have to check our realities.
That's a fact. We've got to pay attention to what we're allowing into our space. And
Right.
that includes what we're saying to ourselves.
Yes.
We're listening to, what we're watching, all of that. What we're allowing our children to listen to, watch, and to say. These are all things that we're allowing into our space. We've got to pay attention to that, because these things are shaping us. And even though, like Tetaun was just saying, sometimes we'll be thinking, oh, this thing isn't that powerful. It's already doing its work. That's how powerful that it is. Once you allowed it in, it's already doing its work. Most of the time, you're not going to notice the work that it's doing, because it does it in a subtle way. And the more you ingest whatever this thing is, just a little bit at a time, it just takes you deeper and deeper down that path, to a point where you never even realize that you in an alleyway 300 miles from where you started at. And
Right.
you just sitting back like, whoa, what is this? You don't even recognize where you are anymore. All you know is that you're there. You don't recognize that you even traveled there, that you chose that direction. This is what's called wandering in the wilderness. In real, you got a bunch of people out here wandering in the wilderness. They don't know it. Well, why? Because you're blinded right now, because your pineal gland is calcified. And to decalcify that pineal gland, you're going to have to become whole. You're going to have to fast and pray. You're going to have to let go of what is not serving you. And this aligns with what we're talking about with growing out of that vampire. Y'all got to understand that this vampire that we're talking about, those cheeseburgers that he was saying, just putting them in. Well, who's making those cheeseburgers? What company is making these cheeseburgers? Because you ain't getting them for free. Who are you paying for these cheeseburgers? Who are you paying for these Skittles? Who are you paying for these different things that you put inside of you? Where are you getting your coffee from? These are all things that people should be asking themselves, because we're feeding a vampire. We're feeding freaking Dracula. And if you would like Dracula to be less powerful, all you gotta do is feed yourself.
Feed yourself, right?
Righteous side of you, and feed the righteous side of you righteousness. The righteous side of you don't want no goddamn cheeseburgers. The righteous side of you don't want no Starbucks, and it don't want no Pops or no Smacks or no Cinnamon Toast Crunch. The righteous side of you wants absolute truth. The righteous side of you wants love. The righteous side of you wants compassion. The
Right.
righteous side of you wants empathy. The righteous side of you wants justice.
Mm. Okay. Okay. I see you over there going back to your old roots. Over there preaching there, sir.
I don't do too much preaching, but I do a lot of demonstrating.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. You know, I guess as I was listening, not only to the commentary that you shared, I also was reminded of a biblical text that was resonating in my head. And Matthew's 15 and 11. And if you think about it, it's not what goes into the mouth that defiles a man, but it's what's cometh out of the mouth that defiles a man. Now, so as we talk about these things that are defiled, and you have knowledge of them being defiled, but even when you partake in something that is defiled, and you ingest it, and it's not tested, it's not tried, those thoughts are not being challenged, right? Then you begin to speak out of your mouth what you have ingested. Now, hear me out. What am I really saying? Am I just, what comes out of a man? Our heart is deceitful and it's very wicked, and nobody knows it. Nobody knows the heart. But I'll tell you for sure, if we continue to diet and eat the way that we're eating, the things that we're consuming, the thoughts that we are not entertaining, that we're not casting down, those vain imaginations that come in and paint these crazy stories in your head because you just want to just blame it on the devil, or you just want to blame it on an alien, or you just want to blame it on a fallen one. But there's a reality here that a lot of the stuff that we're encountering that is not good for us is also has to do with our dieting and what we're eating, because a lot of things that have come in our food source. So as we're talking about the entertainment and we're talking about pop culture, there's a pop that's happening in our food sources. I was watching a video just not too long ago where we talked about hamburgers, right? And how you're finding out, which is nothing new, but a lot of scraps and a lot of sick animals and a whole bunch of meat is being piled together to make those good hamburgers, and not knowing the consequences of that. So you have to continuously look at how we are taking care of ourselves and how we're managing ourselves. And it requires a major detox.
I'm glad you brought that up, brother, because I was in Walmart last night. I don't really go to grocery store too much anymore. I've been blessed to have a wife who does a lot of the grocery shopping. What we need when it goes to food. I do the growing the food.
You grow the food, okay.
Buying the food, right? But anyway, I was inside of Walmart, and I spent a lot of time in there in the past, but going in there last night, man, it was looking like I was looking at The Walking Dead. There was a bunch of brothers who, and I'm not trying to disrespect anybody, man. I'm just want to give give a testimony of an observance that I saw. So I'm walking through a Walmart and I see a bunch of these brothers who are together, right? And I'm looking at them and I'm like, man, maybe these brothers just got out of prison and they're in here getting groceries. No, what those brothers was doing was they was changing shifts. It was a shift change. They worked at Walmart, right? So I'm glad that the brothers had jobs. This is good. But I'm looking at the brothers, and these brothers look like they're anywhere between late 20s to early 50s, and the bulk of them look really bad, man. They look like, well, the way that their skin looked.
Okay.
It looked like, a bunch of discoloration. They looked tired. They looked like they was overworked. They look like they might not have been happy with what they had going on, but this is what's available to them. So this is what they got to do. Maybe child support is eating them up on their paycheck. And, it just looked like there was a bunch of different things going on with them that they just didn't look happy, man. They looked rough. And this was a whole shift of brothers, grown men. And I'm sitting there looking at it, and I understood what was going on. I could look at each one of them and see what the issue is. That's one of the beauties of learning Chinese face mapping.
Uh-oh.
You learn Chinese face mapping, you can look at a person and be like, "Oh, okay, yeah, they got a kidney issue. Oh, you know what? That right there. That's immune system.
That's the eyes, right? Discoloration of your eyes, the
Different
skin.
areas on the face is aligned with different areas of the body having issues. Just like different areas on the bottom of the feet are aligned with various organs throughout the human body, right? So, yeah, it was just difficult to look at that and then be okay with it. Watching the brothers and their work, they working hard, they doing what they got to do, but they're not putting into them what they need to be whole. And it's very easy to see, but they happen to be some of the stronger brothers, the ones who haven't fell apart yet. There's many of our brothers and sisters who have fell apart already. That's the part those are the things that I think about on a regular basis. That kind of thing. That kind of stuff is difficult for me to see and look at and watch and then know that I have the solution. But the solution is something that I can never make anybody do. They have to do it on their own if they want it.
Well, sir, I think that you have made a great call to action. Bringing it to the attention of your audience, the people that you have identified and selected, and also those people that have taken the time to watch, observe this conversation. Many cliches could fit the dialogue. One stands out the most to me is that when you know better, you do better.
Facts.
And so the wisdom is important. And so I find great reward and change. Sometimes change is hard. And a lot of people don't want to change unless it gives you change as a residual, right? Absolutely. Unless it involves money. But to be able to change your mind, that whirl between your ears, that whirl that gives vision from the back of your eyelids and transmit images to the outside. Right? That world that we hear all the time and that world that we fear and feel, we have to change that. And so I think that, being able to, accept those changes in healthy eating, being able to feel fresh, renewed, being able to understand the switches. Because, sometimes we don't know how to handle those switches, those triggers. I call them switches. We ought to get a new word for it. Being able to handle those switches. You know what I'm saying? But, it's great dialogue. It's refreshing, man. So I appreciate it. I've always appreciated it. It's always a part of the learning and the growing. And so, man, I'm going to get me some great mango and, enjoy that for the rest of the evening. Get me some good water and some good fruit.
That sounds amazing. Everybody out there who tunes in to Two Brothaz and an Idea, I want to thank you very much. And I want you to keep tuning in. The brother Tetaun and I, we brought this to the world so that we could help people heal, so that we could help brothers have take control of their home and do it in righteousness. Not just take control of their home, but take control of their home in righteousness, and to step out and have a family that is a demonstration of righteousness to the communities around them. This is very important that we step forward together and do this. And this is something this is a resource that's available to all you brothers out there. Y'all need to get in touch with us. Tetaun's available. I'm available. Every Tuesday we in here. You can come in the studio. You can let us know what's going on with you, and we'll talk with you about it. And that's going to be open every single week. You can go to our websites, fhtii.com. And then obviously Tetaun, he's got the social medias that you can hit up. You can hit the DMs. Listen, this is a resource for y'all brothers. And if y'all sisters are watching and you feel like you need some help, you feel like you need some advice, come and talk to us. We're going to rise together or we're not going to rise. This is the realities that we need to come to as a group, as a melanated family, as a family of humanity. We're going to rise together or we're not going to rise. So let's use this resource. Let's use the intelligence of Tetaun. Let's use the resourcefulness of Ferdinand. And then maybe you don't use the resourcefulness of either one of us. Maybe you use the resourcefulness of someone in your community. That's okay. Let's go ahead and let's bridge that gap. Let's retie that ancestral tie. Let's reconnect that ancestral tie. And how we do that is there's only one way to do it. I'm telling you right now, there is no other way, is to embed ourselves in nature, ingest nature. We've got to eat nature. We've got to see nature. We got to hear nature. We got to feel nature. We got to have nature in every part of what we're doing to achieve this. And if we do this, we can do what we need to do together. And I guarantee world peace is the effect of that cause. That is Two Brothaz An Idea, episode 13. What's up, brother?
I ain't coming to your church, man. You're making it scary.
Well, let me tell y'all this one last thing. Everybody listening? Y'all listening? Expose your gift.